Let us begin with a prayer of awareness, focusing our attention upon our breath, letting it fall softly, sweetly, rhythmically, as we allow the space to expand, letting the presence of all that is divine flow through us, opening our hearts, allowing the divinity within each one of us to add to the essence of universal love. And as we breathe, relaxing into that loving source of all that is, I invite you to bring this gentle joy of spirit into your awareness, into this community, allowing each and every one of us to rejoice in our connection with each other. And so it is. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Day. I was looking for Pat Harvey. Okay, so the chaplains will have the healing circle next door directly after this service. It's a good way to continue the energies that we start here and finish there and then drive home in bliss. And then, has anybody not heard about the Ruiz brothers coming this weekend? There's still some openings for Saturday, so you can sign up online. I think the deadline is Thursday?
Thursday at 4.
Or is that, okay. So, but there are still some openings on Saturday. Friday night is full and we have a wait list, so. And the event on Saturday is from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. We have the Spiritual Life Center Community Directory. People have been having, how many people have had their picture taken already? Okay, so there's one more weekend where you can have that happen on the 26th and 27th of January, and I believe that we think at this point that this will be the last time that they come. So if you want to get in there with your pet and your best friend and some strangers that you just want a picture with, you can do that. You can sign up at our website at www.slcworld.org. And I wanted to thank Pat Harvey. She's not in here, but Pat has taken over the overseeing of the soup and salad program. And it is a godsend for me and for you because the food is really good. And I want to thank her for that. And also, if you are interested in participating even once a month or once every couple months in helping prepare food for this program, please see Pat, because we would like to enhance our staff, let's put it that way. So check with her. And then next week, Dr. Gaitonde is coming back. And she was here in October. She introduced us to the chakra system. She calls it the human energy system. I'm sorry, the human energy matrix, yes. It's right here on this paper even. And its importance to the field of integrated holistic medicine. She spoke about each chakra and its connection with major endocrine glands and their function. And this next week, she's going to teach us how to use foods, gemstones, essential oils to help balance each chakra and keep us in good health. So that's going to be another great evening. She is so funny and so unassuming and so real and down to earth. And I believe she's also going to have a book signing afterwards. Is that correct, Paul? Yes. So bring your pen and buy her book and let her sign it. Anything else? I think that covers everything. So tonight we are privileged to have a person who is an environmental scientist, environmental educator, a musician. She's developed the study of the interrelationships between music and the natural world, and she's named it Ecomusicology. And this term has even gotten written up in Wikipedia now, and apparently there are classes being taught in this. I don't think Catherine was quite expecting all of that. So tonight she's going to explore the natural and global places which inspired her and show us why music is so important for our health and the development of the natural world and humanity. Please welcome Catherine Mandella.
Good evening, everybody. So Deborah asked me, well, how does this spiritually connect you to, your sense of spirituality? And I've thought about it, and ever since I was a little kid, well, first of all, I was born a musician. I'm in a family of musicians. But the reality is actually music is in everybody's DNA. Everybody's a musician. A lot of people, you probably hear, oh, I don't have a musical bone in my body. But it's not like riding a bike where you're not born knowing how. You have to learn how. Music's one of those things that we're taught not to be, unfortunately. But what I realized is that not only, is music important, but, for me to be outside all the time is pretty essential. As Deborah said, I'm an environmental scientist by day, and I've had opportunities to promote, but promotion in my situation often means being stuck behind a desk and a computer, which, as I tell people, I would rot and die pretty quickly. So I have to be outside. In fact, I call it plugging in. So if I've been in a city too long or not been out on a river or hiking through a forest, I need to go get it to recharge. I call it plugging in. So that ended up leading me to wanting to be, it started off as an environmental educator, and having music in my background, a lot of times you use your medium to help teach. A lot of people, artists will use painting, or, dancers can use some form of dance. Well, I saw the words I was learning, because my other undergrad actually is in languages. I can speak Spanish and Italian, and I've studied overseas and worked overseas several times. And I realized, the connection of words. And so I got into, what does the meaning of that word mean? So I'm going to go ahead and start with because it's going to be real easy to get off on tangents, and I only have a little bit of time here. So, backwards. There we go. So ecomusicology. What the heck does ecomusicology mean? Well, let's go to this page right here. Let's break it down. If you just look at eco, it comes from the Greek word oikos, which means home or hearth. And then if you look at music, and this is another cool one, especially if you're into the natural world, muses, which in the Greek mythology, the muses were the poets and the singers and the poetry. It literally means of or from the animal's mouth. And actually, to break it down even more, animal means spirit. And I always remember, 5th grade? I remember I was in this particular Catholic school, and we were talking about souls, and the teacher, and we were talking about, going to heaven when you die and that kind of thing. And I said, well, do animals have souls? And she goes, oh, no, no, no. And I remember it really upset me. So I remember going home, talking about it with my mom. We had a dog that had just died, and we knew his spirit was around, so we were convinced she didn't know what she was talking about, this teacher. But anyway, tangent, see how easy it goes. Back to ology. Everybody knows ology means the study of. So let's kind of break this down. It's going to be 2 parts I'm going to focus on tonight. The first one will be how music affects ecology, and then later I'll kind of focus on how ecology affects music. And there's a lot of facets. I don't have enough time to get into all of it, but I'll try to wet your beak on some, and maybe you can go back and go to your computer and go, what was that she was talking about, and who was that? Because there's some really cool stuff. But I'm going to start with just like the communication form of music and ecology, because it happens everywhere. If you look at this little bird right here, birds have a very important role in the environment, because everything does. But their major niche is more than just when you hear bird calls. And of course, there's always instruments that, you see instruments made, emulating the natural world all the time, like. So birds, not only are their calls calling mates and stuff like that, but they actually found that, like, when they first find a mate and they're new lovers, kind of like, when people, you're in your honeymoon phase and you told, oh, the lovey-doo-doo, come over here for a snuggle. Well, birds actually do that too. They have little chick talk. They do calls that chicks do in that little time frame. And so not only do they have all these amazing facets about them that are sure a lot more than we will ever know, they actually play an intricate role into the health of forests. So plants, for example, all plants have these little mouth-shaped receptors all over them that respond to bird calls. And that helps their circulatory system. So if there's a forest that's dealing with some kind of toxic issue or a fire or whatever, anyway, that diminishes the bird population, eventually the forest will die because they're not, it's like imagine you eating a lot of, sugars, plaquing up your arteries. It's going to be the same effect. Now, in the sea, whales and dolphins do to an ocean environment that birds would do to the terrestrial one. And I can go on and on about whales, but whales, for example, interesting thing, they've noticed over in recent times with shipping traffic becoming so full, I mean, the ocean is just full of ships. How many of you have gone swimming in a lake or a river and there's boats on it, and as soon as you go underwater, it's you hear the sound of boats everywhere. Well, noise travels like 8 times faster and farther in water than it does in air. So you can imagine what all the life forms in the oceans are dealing with. And they found that over some studies that whales have started to sing in a different frequency, kind of like tuning into a different radio. They're singing in a different frequency that's got less static, because all the shipping traffic and all that arthrophony, the man-made noises, have clogged up the airways. So, not that they're not affected by it, because, think about how many of you remember Humphrey the Humpback in 1985. That was a good example of, they're echolocators. They're in a dark environment. They're more auditory than they are visual. So they rely on their echolocating to get them around, to get their food. And so what actually happened with Humphrey was that a man that I'll talk more about later. Take mental notice when I write it down if you can. Bernie Krause. He's done some incredible. He too has come up with a discipline called soundscape ecology. Anyway, he had some recordings of humpbacks feeding and their feeding songs, and he was called in to play those and help lure Humphrey back out to sea. And that was in, Delta, remember Delta and her baby just, was like 10 years ago? Same basic thing. Sometimes they are getting sick because their circulatory system and all the other funk in the waters, oceans and stuff. Sometimes, like Petaluma Pete that kept going up the Petaluma River, on the 4th time that he made it, he died, and they did a necropsy, which is an animal autopsy, and found that he had a lot of nematodes, a lot of parasites in his brain. So that was obviously probably what was messing up his echolocation abilities. Now, elephant seal pups. This is an example of how we learn about ecology through music. Elephant mamas and pups have a specific call that only they know. Their call, only the pup knows their mom's call, and vice versa. So that's going to be an important thing when you're dealing with a place like this, and your mama goes out to eat when she's finally hungry after you've been weaned enough for a month, and she's got to come back and find you in a rookery like that. Unfortunately, only about 50% of elephant seal pups survive for numerous reasons. A lot of them get crushed or just lost. And other mamas are not too keen on them coming over for a meal for them. It's like, they don't smell right and they don't sound right. Get out of here, kid. Okay, so I'm going to play a sound with the help of my sound engineers. And you're going to see nature. So many people have become detached from the natural world. We don't know things. Nature can tell us all kinds of things, like when the seasons are going to change. For example, I'll tell a quick story if this isn't going to take up too much time. In the early days of Sacramento, when they first were building the city, where Old Sac is, and there was still Maidu living along the shorelines, one day they noticed all the Maidu just split from their little area that they were living at. Right after was a flood. And they were like, how did they know that? Well, because they were